Hello there, and welcome to IQT's The Quantum Dragon podcast. My name is Brian Siegelwax, and I am in search of quantum podcasting advantage. My guest this episode is Alex Shih, VP of Product at Q-CTRL. Thank you for joining me. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the opportunity to share and to talk about what we're doing at Q-CTRL.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, my earliest memory of Q-CTRL is the first version of Black Opal. I don't remember anything about the tutorials. They were okay, but I remember the interactive block sphere that you can still enjoy today. From a business perspective, I'll start with a business question. What is the inside baseball story of how Q-CTRL evolved from tutorials in just a few years to being a fairly well-rounded quantum technology company?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably better company historians than myself. A lot of that predates me, but from what I've gathered and what others have shared, since the early days of Q-CTRL didn't really begin with an ed tech product like Black Opal, as you may be familiar with. It really began with a focus on our core competency around quantum control and technical expertise. But we had a passion for education and enablement and really just good product design. And so, our first product was kind of a split between an introductory circuit builder and the 3D block sphere that you may have seen in Black Opal, designed for those who were new to quantum and wanted to have some kind of visual interaction. But also had a separate interface for research teams to perform actual calibrations and control operations on their experimental or bare metal hardware. And so the 3D block sphere itself, that the interactivity had a lot of traction and eventually evolved into what is now known as Black Opal, our ed tech product. And part of it was we were working with a lot of businesses as well as different academic institutions, and they were also kind of sharing it and spreading it. And they were also looking for just good cohesive educational material to inform others about quantum and some of the core concepts. And back then, there was just and even largely today, there was just fragmentation of a lot of content out there. Wasn't cohesive. Maybe it was a little too niche as well. And some of the other options were just you had to go back to academia and get a degree. And so we wanted to find a solution that allowed, especially the workforce or even lecturers or professors, to be able to have a tool to share with students or with their teams to get them to become quantum literate and eventually even be able to program a real quantum computer. And so that's kind of like how that split. And then the other part became what is now known as Boulder Opal. So all the interface and the capabilities to calibrate and run and control operations, that was all packaged into Boulder Opal. And so they became, separate products for different audiences, all with the commonality of just delivering great product experiences for now what has become these kind of two different personas. So that was kind of like the the backstory of how some of these early experiences evolved.
You mentioned, this is why I take notes while you're talking, passion for good product design. To your credit, you're one of the few companies that will not release something that's not ready to go out. And that's actually quite rare. It's much more common for someone to put something out, I play with it, and it's obviously broken. And you're one of the few companies that waits till like when you release the current version of Black Opal, everything worked on the first try. Fire Opal worked on the first try. I've not directly used Boulder Opal. Obviously, I don't have a quantum computer sitting around. Or Ironstone Opal, although I've joked about getting one for the Dragon, a wristwatch version. But yeah, your stuff actually works on the first try, so not just designed visually, but even architecturally. So that's quite rare. And then you also did it somehow without acquisitions. Some of the companies out there, they're starting to buy up other companies to gain these new capabilities, but then you just added them over time also.
Yeah, I think a lot of that credit goes to a lot of our product development teams. And this is one of the things that appealed to me about an emerging deep tech area like quantum, where there's a lot of ripe opportunity to bring in sound product development principles, things like scalability, testability, reliability. And so I'd say, again, credit to a lot of our teams who just bring great engineering and enterprise focused, customer focused principles to how we build products. As from the beginning, our focus has really been on delivering customer value, making sure that whoever uses our products are able to achieve what they're trying to set out to do with our software. And so we always work from there. What's the goals that they're able to achieve? What do they want to achieve, and how can our tools and software and products help them get there? And one of the key things, and I want to be clear that we don't deliver and ship things that are 100% issue free. Just because if you were to do that, if any team were set that as a goal, nothing would get shipped. Part of it's just because devices themselves, quantum hardware, is changing. And so while our software is scalable, one vendor's device, the next generation, could have its own intricacies. And we want to make sure that that software is properly tuned to that as well. And so not everything is going to be 100% issue free, but what we do focus on is making sure that the core jobs to be done, the core tasks, the core workflows, and in cases, algorithmic benchmarks are producing the results that we guarantee and that we set out to do. We ensure that those benchmarks and those results and those tasks are behaving as expected. But the key thing that I've always instilled is, if something does come up, if an issue does come up, if a customer or user highlights just anomalous behavior, we want to be defined and known as a company that responds and reacts and responds and resolves these issues. We don't want to have these issues just sit. And so we want to be known for responding and acting on customer feedback, on resolving any kind of issues that do come up. But to your earlier point, yeah, we do pride ourselves on just a very high, setting a very high quality bar, so that when we release something, um, it is performing at the industry, the industry best, standard, and the quality bar that we set for ourselves.
Yeah, I can actually verify that part. I don't remember what my suggestions were, but I made suggestions early on for Fire Opal, and you implemented all of them. I mean, I think there were only like two or three, and I don't want to guess based on memory what they were, but because in the beginning it was just quantum circuit, and I have a Fire Opal question later, so I'm getting way ahead of myself. But you submit the circuit, you get the results back, and it worked. It was solid, it worked. And then I asked, well, can it do this? Can it do that? And then you legitimately added that. And I'm just me. I'm not even, an important customer. So, but I can verify that, yeah, you took the suggestions and you made Fire Opal better, just
I
based on any old schmucks suggestions.
No, that I remember that as well, and we were deeply appreciative of a lot of that early testing and feedback you did give. Um, One, especially in the, before we release a product, before we release even a set of features with an existing product, you highlight a very important aspect, which is we want to make sure it's tested, and we usually have a set of trusted users and close customers as well, so that before we make something generally available, we do give access to some of these features to ask people to test them, to see if they are, in some cases, getting this expected results out of their specific algorithm, or in some cases that they're able to execute a new function that we may be releasing, and that's intuitive as well. And so, again, you know you may not be part of an enterprise organization, but the experience you have as an independent user is deeply important to us, because we want to make sure that our products are so simple and seamless to use. And so again, the feedback you provided, I remember that was like the very early days when Fire Opal was still kind of in a beta status, and we were just making sure everything was polished before the actual launch.
That probably should have been a slogan: so simple and seamless to use, the second least qualified person in quantum can figure it out. You can use that going forward. Free license, whatever the best license is. And before I move on to question two, because we're still on number one, I want to mention to people listening. In Black Opal, when we talk about design, there was one part that was super interesting, where you were like zoomed out on what did I say? Like, what am I, a teenager again? You're like zoomed out on I did it again. You're zoomed out on a superconducting quantum computer, and then you get to like fly in, like zoom in towards the chip. That was cool. That's my favorite design element, probably in your products, but off the top of my head, I can't really think of anything else. But that's just because you're not expecting that. You just see a quantum computer, then you're like flying in like Ant-Man shrinking down, and eventually you're at the chip. So
Yeah,
whoever came up with that, thumbs up.
yeah. Credit again to a lot of our design, front end, and product teams. And yeah, it really, I remember experiencing that when I first signed up for Black Opal, and yeah, it just kind of demystifies the actual QPU, and also familiarizes the user with the overall quantum computing system as well. So
And it's just fun, which is the
yeah,
whole point of my
there's
shtick, that quantum is so interesting, we forget at some point like how interesting it is. like you have to say, wow, that's cool. Well, superconducting literally, but that's so interesting. What happened to the wow part? And even something
Mm.
like that, just, hey, that was fun. Okay, let me go on to the next module and get my certificate. No, badge. You get a badge, and then the certificates at the end.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
I've got them all saved somewhere.
That's
All right,
right. Yeah.
question two. That was a long question one. Okay, we say that quantum sensing is more mature than quantum computing. So here's a two-parter. Why did you transition from only licensing quantum sensors to building them? Because I asked that question a few years ago, and the reply was that you were only licensing them. And now that you're building them, how is the market for Ironstone Opal? When will quantum navigation be as ubiquitous as atomic clocks, MRI, which don't even need the word quantum to be ubiquitous?
Yeah. I'd say, your characterization is still largely our go-to-market approach. We're certainly not building sensors at scale. In fact, we're working with manufacturing partners. So we're doing a lot on the supply side. But with all emerging technology, there's a lot of work to be done on establishing and maturing the demand side as well. And so while our Sensi solution is built on the same expertise around bringing our quantum control capabilities to software ruggedized sensing solutions, and to really kind of establish the demand and grow that demand side, it requires um, delivering solutions that have some of that stack that can be evaluated and demoable. So we do have hardware prototypes and reference designs that we build out as we're working with with defense primes and aviation companies and aircraft manufacturers, um, so that we can demo the capability as well as allow them to evaluate it. But our broader plan is that, again, the scalable manufacturing would be done through partners, and this would be in close collaboration with us as we're uh, advising, guiding, and designing the hardware itself, or designing the hardware, coming up with a hardware design. But I'd say, to your question about the overall market, there is extensive interest, as you may be well aware of, around commercial and defense for crewed as well as uncrewed platforms. And so there's a number of um, stats that the news and the media will often reference. So one example is, for the U.S. alone, the U.S. economy alone, the loss of GPS service, or even just the unreliability of GPS, is estimated to cost the U.S. roughly about $1 billion per day of economic value. And it gets even higher when there are fluctuations or peaks in certain supply chain seasons, whether it's around agriculture or other kinds of deliveries. And so there's so much economic value that's lost just because of the reliance on GPS. And then similarly, for even just for aviation, commercial aviation, you mentioned kind of a GPS tracker that you're monitoring. So you may notice that there are, every day there's roughly 1,000 civilian flights that are affected by these kinds of, the unreliability of GPS, or even just intentional interference with GPS. So GPS jamming, spoofing. And so this is a huge need. And so that's why, we see a huge market opportunity, as well as just the mission critical nature of being able to build out these solutions for navigation.
And is the focus on navigation, or do you have more sensors cooking?
That is our primary use case, is around navigation. We do have other use cases, both research and product opportunities that we're looking at. But yeah, navigation is definitely the most mature in terms of our product development. And also, just to underscore how serious and invested we are, we recently, as I mentioned, we're working with a lot of manufacturers, so both for crewed and uncrewed platforms. And so we're working with specifically with a lot of UAV, UAS manufacturers to test and integrate our technology. We recently opened up a new office in Huntsville where that team is specifically designing and testing and integrating our technology with UAS manufacturers.
I'm trying to remember what I asked about because it was a few years ago, and I don't think it was navigation, but I don't remember what it was. And it was for a startup that wanted to use quantum sensors for something. I know this can't be more vague, but I don't remember what it was or what the startup wanted to do with it. But then that's when the reply came back, well, we can license it to you. And then the question was, well, who's going to build these things? And then that didn't happen. So that's where that question came from. And as you can tell, my memory is stellar.
Right. I would
Or I
also
haven't had
say
enough
that
coffee yet, either way.
I would also say that there's a lot of room for innovation around the commercial and business models as well. And so our primary go-to-market is still licensing, but there's going to be innovation around how this model works as well. But that's the primary way that again, because we are a software first company, that is how we go to market with our infrastructure software products. And so it's the same way that we're doing it with even on the sensing side.
Okay. Let's move on to Boulder Opal. So how did Boulder Opal control software evolve into Boulder Opal scale up for the autonomous bring up of quantum computers, and then to Cube, an actual quantum computer with Quantware, Qblocks, and others? You also have a partnership with Equal One. So you're blurring the line between being a software company and being an integrator like most quantum computer companies. So where's that headed?
Yeah, I mean that's you summarized a quite the journey and evolution of this product line. So we touched a little bit at the beginning around how the early product set at Q Control evolved or originated and then evolved into both our EdTech product and then Boulder Opal, our calibration solution. And what we started to see is, we've always had the hypothesis, which has largely been validated, which is, hardware, for quantum hardware to perform, and even on the classical side, it requires software to maximize the performance. And so similarly, we were seeing that even for the hardware developers, they were using what we call more of the Boulder Opal toolkit, which doesn't have the autonomous bring up built in. So you had a lot of hardware experimentalists who are using the toolkit to tune up, to calibrate, to characterize their devices, to be able to measure properly. But we're bringing in a lot of our just UX and design into that product line. But then what we started to see over the past few years were some of these more emerging commercially oriented QPU vendors. So, organizations like Quantware, Equal One, Anion, and even Rigetti, as they're investing more in their Novera and Cepheus product lines, we're starting to see a lot of these folks start to sell just the QPUs and then integrate with controllers, with other dilution fridge manufacturers. And yeah, they may be working with a system integrator that kind of pieces it all together. And so what we started to see was, we could take this toolkit, we could take Boulder Opal toolkit and build in more of this, what we call intelligent autonomy. Again, building on our expertise around the physics-informed AI agentic approach, bring in our physics expertise into this and be able to work with these vendors to tune up their device. Basically, let us handle the tune up and the bring up of these devices so that when they sell to different data centers, research facilities, or HPC facilities, it's integrated with our software, or it's bundled together with our software. So they, like, for example, Quantware may be selling their QPUs, and they'll integrate and bundle our auto calibration software with their QPUs so that when an end customer or end user facility installs, all they have to do is run a command and it tunes up their device. That is the end experience that we are going for. And so how this evolved into Cube, which stands for Quantum Utility Block, is in discussions with Quantware and as well as one of our long-standing controller partners, Qblocks, we decided we can individually sell our components to some of these facilities, but it's a very fragmented and also cumbersome experience to us as the vendors, but also to the end customer or the end user facility as well, for them to navigate and decide which vendors to choose. And so we decided, hey, let's work together and ensure that all of our components in this overall stack are interoperable, and so that if a customer wants to choose our solutions packaged together, we will guarantee that it will just work out of the box. And so that was our agreement, was to make sure everything was interoperable and to really avoid this fragmentation that often happens when you have all these different solutions to choose from, or even just the brokenness and friction to kind of piece it together. I want to also be clear that there's still a need for a system integrator. There's still many other components to bring in, to install, but what we do make sure is that our software will tune up the QPU. It will work seamlessly with the controller, the hardware controller, and that part of the stack will work out of the box. So that's the guarantee we have, and I think there's a lot of opportunities to continue to expand from there. But yeah, we were delighted to see Elevate Quantum being the first to open up a facility, and I think it's also proven out. Again, another thesis in terms of both time to deployment. So even with Elevate Quantum, it went from an announcement of us working together to a full deployment and launch of their facility in 5 months. And so that was something we were really proud of. And it was also at a fraction of the cost of maybe a vertically integrated or a fully integrated quantum computing system that other locations may purchase as well. And so that was a model that we were kind of testing. And it was great to see some, again, a real world deployment of such a concept.
So is there going to be in the near future a quantum computer called something Opal? Is that where this is like going? So you've got the control stack solid, but you need these parts, you need those parts. I saw some announcement you had, I think it was Maybell and a few other partners joining in there. So at what point do you package that all together? And you've got, if I knew what any of the opals were called, I'd volunteer a name right now, but I'm not a stone guy. But is that where that's going, or any discussions of, hey, let's
Yeah, so
go?
Maybell was joined in on the Elevate Quantum installation, and so they're part of that whole lab. And Elevate Quantum calls it QPAC. That's the name of their facility. We leave it up to the end customer or that end user facility to decide how they want to name this. We certainly wouldn't be opposed to the name, throwing in the name Opal in there, but we'll have to wait and see as we have more deployments. Maybe the Opal name will catch on as the branding for a new system.
I did design off topic. I designed a dragon opal at one point to share something you guys did. I don't remember what, but just like an opal stone with a dragon etched into it. I have to find where in my archives that went. Let's see. So now I've planted that seed in your mind, a computer, something opal. Next up is, what's the benefit of uploading Fire Opal to Qiskit functions? As a user, I just want to use it all willy-nilly. I think you figured that out by now. So I want to run the algorithms that I want to run and have them perform better wherever I want to run them. So what does that do for you? Is it marketing? Is it commercialization? Why Qiskit functions and other maybe catalogs?
Yeah, I mean that point you mentioned around, you want to run them wherever you want to run them. That was one of the core reasons and motivations for why Qiskit functions make sense. We strongly believe that we need to meet users wherever they are. And so yes, we have Fire Opal, which is its own direct Python client. And so any user can go to our website and also sign up for Fire Opal, create their Q-Control account, and we have a free tier that they can run some simple algorithms and experiment with it. But Qiskit functions was important for a few different reasons. One was, working with a mature commercial vendor, enterprise-focused commercial vendor like IBM. And we've had a long-standing relationship with IBM, where even before Qiskit functions, we had natively integrated our Fire Opal software stack on their Pego systems. And so we already had this architecture kind of outlined with them. And again, that made sense because there were just a large audience of users who were already there, and we didn't want to disrupt whatever workflows or notebooks or scripts that they had already set up. And so we want to make it super easy for them to just add one line of code into existing workflows that they already had, and they could invoke Fire Opal and execute Fire Opal performance management on whatever algorithms that they were running. And so it's the same idea as it evolved into Qiskit functions. And so, we were delighted continue to partner and work with IBM to package this up and offer this now as one of the launch partners of their Qiskit functions catalog. And sure, yes, there's a lot of marketing and go-to-market motion that we benefit from by working together with them. So that is certainly part of it, but that's what's required if you were to build commercial products. And so that is certainly a benefit of this. I'd also say that, internally, one of the other motivations for us to do this was we wanted to make sure that our software and our products are modular, are composable enough so that we can flexibly integrate with other hardware platforms or software platforms. So in many ways, this was, working with IBM was a good forcing function for us to make sure that our products were being built and developed and we were iterating in the right direction, because we pride ourselves on being hardware agnostic, and the only way we can do that is by working with vendors like IBM, with like Rigetti, like IonQ, and then also on the sensing side, working with different crewed and uncrewed platforms. We truly are, hardware and platform agnostic, and the only way to do that is to actually integrate and launch, real world products. It's not enough to do, kind of lab experiments. So we want to make sure that our products and our software are deployable and usable by customers.
So you mentioned in there one line of code, and you don't really stress that part enough, because I make this point where I'm playing with something, and either the notebook is huge or you have to copy and paste all this stuff. And I'll often point to FireOpal. You import FireOpal, you provide credentials at some point, and it's really just, it's all in that import. I don't need to see like all these internal functions. Import FireOpal, send it with the credentials to well, generally IBM, because of the open plan historically. So the simplicity there, it's not just a gimmick of one line. It's really everybody should be doing it. Just let me I don't know why I'm ranting, but just import your thing and let me run the function. Why do I need to see all that everywhere else? But it really is very little code, and then one code to I think it's just one line to actually queue it up, and then the rest of it is like you would have anywhere else, where you have to retrieve the results and get all your fancy visualizations and so forth. But especially the import, I think that's my favorite part. Well, my favorite part is that it works. But second to that, just import FireOpal, and why can't that just be standard for the industry? So rant concluded.
Yes, I think that should be that should be a key standard. I think, I have this aspiration where trying to bring in more folks from just traditional software development backgrounds, and to bring along all the best practices that others have accumulated from other top tier product companies. And having experienced and spent time at some of these companies myself, one of the commonalities is, how do you make things not only delightful to use, as you've kind of mentioned with Black Opal, but also for those who are new to a domain. One of the key things that's required is to make it super simple to use. And so I I often test this because I know that our products evolve. We keep, adding more functionality to it. I will periodically host just, workshops at conferences, and sometimes we have visitors come to our office, and we do often, we do user testing every once in a while, but there's nothing that will expose or reveal any kind of friction you have in the process than getting a lot of folks who don't have any accounts set up to do so within a limited time window, and to make sure everything is just working. And so every at least a couple times every year, we have these workshops. And sometimes it's with students, sometimes it's with professionals, but oftentimes they've never executed a program on a real quantum computer before. And my goal is to get them to be able to do so in a very short time window. And so that often, I'm delighted that many times, yeah, we're able to get someone who has never experimented or interacted with a real quantum computer, not a simulator, but a real quantum computer, and getting them to run a function. And they have to go through all the setup, all the account setup, adding their credentials, importing, and then running execute. And so that's been fun. And then we get a lot of, user feedback as well. And so it's a way to, again, continue to improve and simplify the overall user experience.
It's a good thing your AI works, because I tested that. So I it's a little bit of a cheat since I know what it can do and what it can't do, but I still gave it, and it got it on the first try. Give me probably just a simple Bell state. Just give me the code that I can execute this on IBM's open plan real quick, and it spit it right out. So now I knew that I needed credentials, so I don't remember if I had to hold its hand any, but the fact that it even got it, the important part of sending it to IBM, and then I could look in the dashboard and I can see, okay, it is queued up. And then, oh, by the way, maybe there was a second question. How do I retrieve the results? Here you go. But whatever it was, I got to, play fairly stupid, trying to pretend like I never used it before. How do I do this? How do I get it without looking at any of my code? And it worked. So I don't know if you keep that open when you've got the people there, but hey, you can ask this AI that actually works, which is again not universally true with other AIs out there.
Yeah. No, thanks for
Your AIs in general, your AIs in general, because they seem to be narrowly trained, like even Black Opal's AI. It knows what it knows. It knows what it doesn't know, and it won't try to hallucinate and make stuff up. It's just, this is what's in my corpus, and here's an answer that's actually correct. So I like the way you do that.
Yeah, you actually said exactly what I was going to say in terms of how we kind of built this and made any kind of AI assistant available. So in our docs, we have an AI assistant, but it is very closely trained on our documentation, because we know those, the notebooks, the different topics, the different user guides that we have in our documentation works. And so we wanted to make sure that it was properly scoped accordingly. And then the other part is, if someone, prompts or inputs something that is not within the library of content that's been trained on, it will be very explicit in saying that it's not as familiar with the topic, and so it's not going to try to mislead the user and output garbage code or garbage advice or guidance. And so similarly with Black Opal too. Yeah, it was tightly trained on a lot of our Black Opal content. But there's always opportunities to continue to kind of expand because we don't want to say that, Black Opal is the only legitimate or valid content out there. There's plenty of other very useful and legitimate, incredible sources. And so we're always kind of expanding on how we can bring some of that content into our AI learning assistant as well.
Some of that stuff copied you. That's why it's good. But I
Yeah.
digress. I won't name any names either. But speaking of Black Opal, how is the market for Black Opal Enterprise with AI? I ask that because I've spoken with end users, and not everyone at a company needs to know about quantum computing. So I've seen really big companies with quite small teams. So who are the power users of quantum education? We kind of mentioned academia earlier, but then from an enterprise standpoint, who are the power users of quantum education?
Yeah, we there's several examples, but maybe I'll highlight um a couple just because they come to mind because of a lot of recent events. One was is the NQCC in the UK. They've been a long-standing customer of Black Opal, and they have this whole initiative where they're training students as well as business professionals to build up a quantum workforce in the UK. And that has been quite exciting in terms of how they've enlisted, how they've recruited learners to use our platform, and then they facilitate a lot of programs around it. They also have they have quantum hardware for others to also access. So it's quite exciting how they have this comprehensive program around it. So that's one example where they're really kind of building out this whole ecosystem. And then there's clients like HSBC who have been using this to really build out their own internal workforce. We know that the intersection of quantum with finance is critical, both the upside as well as the potential risks. And so they have been training their workforce by the hundreds to make sure that they're, that it, I think they aspire to have every employee to be quantum literate. So those are kind of like a couple examples that are quite inspiring. And then there's, we have a whole portfolio and ecosystem of universities and academia who have been using Black Opal as part of the kind of an intro or overview of quantum to students. And so there's universities like Howard University, San Francisco State University, University of Hull, where the professors or the lecturers will administer Black Opal to different students in different classes, as sometimes as a short course, sometimes as a semester long curriculum where they will have a final project at the end. And so working with a lot of those clients has actually informed new features that we had launched and released in Black Opal, such as a projects or an exams feature. So students who go through, or learners who go through the entire product and all the content, they can take an exam at the very end. Or if they want to do some kind of capstone project, we also have that functionality in Black Opal as well. And so there's a lot of exciting things that are coming with Black Opal. And a lot of it's informed again by how both businesses as well as universities are using the product. in the feedback they give, and as they kind of share what's next that they would want to do, as they have learners or as they have employees go through all the content. They often share about, okay, what's next? What are some other functions or other capabilities that they would want? So it's a great set of clients and partners to be working with.
And why is simulation premium? That's the newest module, right? I saw that pop up on my screen. So of course I log in right away. I want to take a look at it. I want to write something about it. And it's enterprise only. So why is that module hidden?
Yeah, so it's a good question. We recently launched a whole application category. And again, a lot of that was feedback and discussions and brainstorming with a lot of our clients and partners, where they wanted to have more training, more workforce development around specific use cases and applications. So we actually started with an application module around logistics. That we work with a lot of customers who have optimization type problems, and then simulation was another one, because that was a growing area of interest, both with the clients we worked with, but also different different learning learning different learners in some of the requests that they were also feeding back to us. We saw that there was, again, a lot of market opportunity, but also a lot of demand from the clients that we were working with, and learning about this area. That was also coupled with, which you may be aware of, in our just a few weeks back, we had announced that we had achieved practical quantum advantage in materials science in a simulation problem. And what we're excited about is that I think it reinforces that we provide a very comprehensive offering, everything from simulation, education and training around simulation with our simulation module, to technical capability with this simulation achievement, to what would be coming next, which is a simulation solver that we will be releasing as part of Fire Opal. So that will be a new function that will be available in Fire Opal. So we're making both the education, the research capability, as well as production software available to different clients as well as partners.
The advantage thing is why I said in the beginning that I'm looking for a podcasting advantage, because you've got the Ironstone Opal navigation advantage, then you had the result that you just mentioned. So I don't know if anybody would notice such a thing, but that's why I tie my little
I
Easter
caught that
eggs.
at the beginning. Yeah, I caught that at the beginning. That's great.
Everything's for a reason. Okay, let's see. Here's the big one. You ready for the big one? All right, I'm turning on the spotlights now. I'm shining them right in your face like a police interrogation. The last time I asked this question, my guest was the CEO of IQM, and he didn't reveal anything during the recording, but just a few weeks later, we found out that IQM was indeed going public. So I now turn the question to you. Are there any plans for Q Control to go public?
I cannot comment on that, so I will not. I will politely decline a response.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, I'm going to be watching the news. I'll be watching, because you guys even just recently, there was some photo from, what was it, NASDAQ. So I thought that might be like a hint, because your CEO said, what did he say? He said something like big news is coming next week, and then there's like a picture of NASDAQ or something like that. I'm like, okay, just say it.
Yeah, that might have been related to the lead up to our simulation announcement, which he also had a keynote at the IBM Think conference as well. But yeah, I think there was also if I recall what you're referencing, it was also earlier this year we were recognized by Time Magazine for being one of the top 100 most influential companies in the world. And so I think that billboard or that display was also was a just a recognition of that mention. And in fact, the category that we were listed in was actually alongside IBM and SpaceX. And so it was quite an honor to be listed as, again, one of the most influential companies alongside, some of those peers.
All right. Well, I'm watching. The question has been asked. The answer is out there. And I am all out of questions, and Q Control is obviously doing so much. I'm sure I missed a lot. So the floor is yours to say anything else you'd like to say.
I think we've covered quite a bit. Hope the audience hasn't been bored by some of the things I've shared. I would say, one of the things that has been quite exciting for me, having come from a different background in deciding to work in the quantum industry, is seeing how as the market is evolving and maturing, there are more stakeholders, more personas that are entering, and I'm seeing a lot of folks who who don't have a quantum physics background, who are seriously considering investing, budgeting to accommodate for quantum in their business, whether it's a financial institution or whether it's a data center. And so I think for the quantum industry as a whole, it's our responsibility to be aware and to be able to meet these different personas and stakeholders where they are. It's been, a lot of this industry has been built on the shoulders of technical and research expertise. And I think the industry owes a debt of gratitude for all the breakthroughs that have been achieved, as well as breakthroughs that are continuing to occur. And so all of that is required. But there are more folks who are coming into this ecosystem that that are learning about, that have a strong desire to deploy solutions. And so I think for all of us, we need to make sure that we are building real products. And these are products that deliver on what we say they will deliver. So it's important. We cannot have empty promises or not follow through on our guarantees, because I think that will, it'll just leave a bad impression for those who are trying to invest and trying to adopt quantum. So there's a lot of responsibility to deliver on the promise of what quantum can bring.
Sounds good to me.
I'll get off.
Thank you again. That was a really good point, because so much of what's out there doesn't work. So your point about building a real product and it needs to deliver what you'll say it'll deliver, most of it doesn't do that. And then that's actually why, or a big part of why I now have the premium Quantum Dragon, because I'm not gonna write like a hit piece or an IQT news exclusive. Here's a product and here's everything wrong with it. It's got to be at least, mostly good. I haven't done that in a while, actually, a product review, but it has to be at least mostly good. So then what about the literally hundreds of other things out there that you really can't write about? Then that kind of is, more hidden of here's another thing, and here's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you contrast that with Q control products, which I've written about quite a bit, because at least it's positive. It's not just me being an ass, here's a product and here's everything that doesn't work. Here's stuff works. So here's, this black opal skill. I forgot you guys call it skills, not modules. Here's this black opal skill, and here's what I did with fire opal, including running phase estimation before you did, by the way. I noticed that you guys posted that. I'm like, hey, you're welcome. Um, and then even whatever else I've written, boy, that goes back years before I even used Substack. So that was even probably before Medium. That goes back to WordPress, which I don't use anymore. Haven't used in a while.
Wow.
So the
Yeah.
stuff that actually works is such a narrow part of the field that it's worth harping on or make your soapbox higher that this stuff should actually work, and a lot of it just really doesn't, or some's just too ambitious. So imagine, I don't want to use Black Opal as a bad example, but just imagine something new out there and it's just trying to do too much, so nothing works well. Just kind of like the early Fire Opal. It Again, you give it the circuit and worked. Boom, that's all it did initially, and it worked, and that's fine. Then you added a feature. The what was it? Circuit retrieval. I think that was my idea.
Yeah.
The Instead of just waiting for it to execute. So something like that. You added that feature. You waited till it worked, and then you're like, hey, here it is. But that really is not common. So you have my permission, not that you asked, to build your soapbox a lot higher. Just keep adding blocks. That's fine. Your soapbox is fine for me. You won't hear any questions from me about it.
Well, thank you for your years of support, your years of feedback, and I think it's safe to say that the product would not be where it is without especially some of your early usage. So very sincerely, thank you.
Well, do you know the backstory to that? Oh, you probably
Um,
wouldn't. Your boss probably doesn't remember either, because I think I was. This was back when there was an academic Twitter and a quantum Twitter, and I think I was tweeting I can't even pronounce it anymore, pseudonymously, with a pseudonym.
yeah,
I
yeah.
wasn't using my name, but so anyway, I'd found the previous Black Opal, and then I privately messaged. That's introductory level. Do you have anything else, like intermediate level, or what's next? And then Professor Biersick replied that there's something Fire Opal, and this was like 2 years before you released it. So for like a 2 year period, I was literally badgering him, like maybe like every month, every couple of months, where's Fire Opal? Where's Fire Opal? Where's Fire Opal? And then finally, I got the invite to send a couple of circuits to Dr. Hush, and then just see that initial teaser of, hey, that's looking pretty good, and then I could finally get my hands on it and start banging away with the swap test. I think the swap test was first. What's the dirtiest, nastiest circuit you can make with only 5 or 7 qubits at the time?
Mhm.
Because that was IBM's open plan at the time, the fives and the sevens. So that was a multi-year process for me of the Black Opal. Okay, what's coming? Fire Opal. But then again, to the point you made earlier, you weren't going to release it until it worked. So Fire Opal had to cook, even with somebody like me, like badgering him, where is it? Where is it? But I might have been using a pseudonym, so I don't know if he even remembers that. But I guess eventually I started writing about it under my name and got the alpha testing invite there. So that's like the full story. Well, then you know the story after that point. Once I got my hands on it, and let me try this and let me try that, and phase estimation, which I got up to molecular oxygen. I forget how many counting qubits, but way past Qiskit without it. So that's, you guys like to do the X thing, like this X improvement, but the main thing was without Fire Opal, it doesn't work. With Fire Opal, it does work. So even just binary there, I can see the results, not quite ideal simulator, but I can see the results with Fire Opal, and without it, it's noise, sheer noise. So
Yeah, I
very big
remember.
difference.
Yeah, I remember. I think. Yeah, even. By the way, I do recall. I think that was the first way. I think that was like how I first got introduced to you as well. Was, yeah, just being kind of like that early tester that would just yeah, try anything and everything to really stress test it, which was great. But yeah, I
Very
remember.
nice way of putting that. Thank you.
But yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
sugarcoat it.
yeah, but I think like, yeah, I remember in the early days, yeah, it was a matter of whether or not it would either work or not work. But I think, the devices have, credit to a lot of the hardware vendors. Um, they've matured, they've evolved, where now a lot of what Firepool does, a lot of benefits is and it's been a lot of the messaging we've said it at the beginning too, but it allows users to run larger problems, and it'll boost the, in some cases, depending on what metric you care about, it may boost the success probability. So even running on bare metal, sometimes, especially if it's a small circuit, it may still find the right answer, but the probability may not be as high. So you may not, as a user, you may not have as much confidence in that being the right answer. So with Fire Opal, it will certainly boost the success probability. And it may also do so with much more efficient runtime as well. So it may not cost as much to do so, because we'll optimize or reduce the number of gates, for example, that you may need to run. And we have a marquee example with Mitsubishi Chemical for a quantum phase estimation algorithm that they ran, where it reduced the number of gates that they needed by 90%. So that was a clear benefit that they experienced.
Or even your recent QAOA thing, and I don't use QAOA, but when that first came out, I just so happened to be trying somebody else's QAOA at the same time. And so even for something like that, you can definitely see how it converges much faster. So the Fire Opal demo, so it converges faster and it's done faster, and that's obviously important if you're paying for it. The other one, in the meantime, I wish this is why I just use audio instead of video, but if people could see my finger going up and down, it wasn't converging. You didn't get that line of trying to find that minimum. It was, well, even a roller coaster doesn't look that bad. What did it look like? Kind of like a stock market ticker where it like goes up, goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up, goes down, and you're not finding the answer that way. And then each iteration, of course, you have to wait in the queue, so it's just going and going. And I think I just gave up on that one, and I'll be nice and not say their name. But then, Fire Opal, to its credit, your credit, Q Control's credit, if you want to run something like that, you can see because the results are cleaner. It really does get to a solution faster, and that saves time. Or the deeper the circuit, you can see the difference of I cannot otherwise run this, and now with Fire Opal I can run it. And anybody who's still listening to this, by the way, you don't have to take my word for it because you can try it for free, which is worth pointing out. Fire Opal is free. IBM's Open Plan is free. You can try it out and you know, your favorite circuit, pick whatever it is, and see the difference with and without. And it's a fun. Well, I enjoy it anyway.
No, thank
Fun
you. Yeah.
experiment.
Yeah.
This is does not otherwise work, or just sheer noise coming out of it without Fire Opal.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, we try to, all of our products have a free tier. Anyone can sign up. You can't, run anything that's potentially like enterprise scale or industry scale of anything commercially meaningful, but it allows you to at least test it out, run some small scale problems to show how it actually works. But then all we have paid tiers for all of our other products as well.
It's probably good for someone who's just getting in, because you take the tutorials. I would imagine it's been a while since I was at this point, but you take the tutorials and then you want to run something on real hardware and you just get noise back and you're like, well, what are we going to do with these things? But if you use Fire Opal, then you see, hey, this actually, I'm learning something and this is what I'm supposed to see. And now I can actually see it using a real quantum computer. And that's the exciting part, in my biased opinion, as opposed to, well, yeah, you could classically simulate it, and yeah, you can do this. And well, it's all fun. Who am I kidding? But it's really even more fun to use a multi-million-dollar toy and abuse it and create this like circuit. And well, how big of a problem can I solve? And the fun part is using real hardware, a real toy, and even better, it looks like it's working. And then, because then otherwise you have to explain, well, what point are you at with knowing about coherence and all the other things that can, create noise and skew the result. And you have to explain all that versus just add this import Fire Opal line, and then the results come back. And this is let me tell you a little bit about noise and why it doesn't look perfect, but at least it looks like what the textbook says. So we need a wider soapbox so you and I can both stand up there, I think, is the moral of the story.
I'll the next time I have a workshop, I'll invite you and we'll co-present.
Yeah, depending on the time zone, I'm there. So because your time zone depends where that workshop is. If it's early morning for you, that probably works for me.
Yeah.
But let's see. We could keep going on and on and on, but let's wrap this up. So thank you again for joining me on IQT's The Quantum Dragon podcast. And thank you to anyone who's still listening. I usually say everyone, but thank you to anyone who's still listening. As always, I invite you to stick around for the outro music. It's called Dungeons and Dragons. Enjoy.
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, thank you so much.